everybody. Thank you so much for being here today for today's top producer interview. I'm Edith Espinola, and I have been having so much fun doing these interviews as a member of the Productivity Committee from the ALC. So today's guest is Chris Rasmussen. He is the general manager of Keller Williams Bay Area Estates and Keller Williams Coastal Estates. And that's it, those two main
Sounds
offices,
very important.
Right? Well, it is very important because you're very important. Right, right.
I was very impressed.
So I thought what I would do is just go ahead and ask Chris some questions to kind of get to know him better and learn organically with you who he is, you know, what his philosophy on success is, and where he plans on taking us. So everybody please welcome Chris Rasmussen.
Woo! Thank you.
You're very welcome. So Chris, tell us a little bit about yourself, like how you got started in real estate.
That was so long ago, I don't remember.
I know because it's been, what, 30 years?
Oh, come on. 29 and a half. 74 days. Yeah, almost 29 years. I went right out of San Diego State University. No idea anything about the real estate industry. And met somebody who told me about real estate, knew nothing about it. My parents were teachers and coaches, so I had a teaching credential, and that's what I planned on doing. No real estate agents were ever interested in speaking to my family because they were teachers. And back then, they didn't make very much money compared to now. So I had no background, no instincts, no nothing. And I just literally fell into it.
Okay, so did you know somebody who had sold real estate and said they thought that you would be great at it?
No,
or
no.
You just tripped over the welcome mat at Century 21?
Big. Yeah, there's a small twist on it. I had a girlfriend.
There you go.
You know, it starts there.
That's how it got started.
So there's a disclaimer you're going to have to sign ahead of time here. I met some girl that was a girlfriend, and she said, "Oh, my mom is a real estate agent." And I said, "What is that?" And I'm not joking. I literally said that. I was 23, just out of college. Went to college and got a BA in sociology with an emphasis in all the social sciences. So I was going to be a teacher. She says, "Hey, my mom does this." They had a nice house. I was fairly smart and said I put two and two together. Her mom didn't work that many hours and had a nice house. I thought, that's for me. My dad, who was a big baseball, football coach in the area, had one friend who was also a big baseball and football coach, and this guy happened to have a real estate company for like 30 years, so he said, "Why doesn't Chris come join this mom and pop operation?" Mm-hmm. So I went there. It took me, I don't want to exaggerate, but I think it took me 2 times to pass the exam. I don't think I studied. But remember, I'd already graduated from college, so I was like, what do I need to study for? I'll just go in and wing it.
Yeah, so at that age, you're like, what, 22 years old? You know, we all know how we felt at
really
22.
Smart, yeah. So it took a couple times to pass the exam. It took like 6 weeks, I think, back then to get your score, to get your results or something. Mm-hmm. And it was like, so that took me like 3 months. Popped out. My dad said, "Go start at this real estate company of a family friend." I went there. I thought it was the greatest thing in the world because what we did every day was I would answer phones there, turn on the fax machine if you know what that is, which I was told to turn it off when something wasn't coming in. So we saved money on that. We went to baseball games every day at 2:00, and that's what we did. And we did this for the first year, and I thought this was like the greatest business ever until I realized I was living at home with my parents still, and that sucked. So I thought I better get to work. I literally was about to quit, and somebody came over from Contempo Realty. Anybody remember Contempo? Anybody old enough? Big time outfit, probably as good as it ever was. The only thing I think that even looks like it is KW, honestly. Went over and joined Contempo for my second year after literally I was washing out of the business. I had no guidance, no concept of even what to do. And I went to Contempo, listened to some smart people there, had a mentor there who was the owner of Contempo, and I think I sold 23 houses in my
first year of seriously
my first year of going to baseball games. I didn't sell anything. It had a lot of fun, no money. But I think my second year, my actual first year, I think I sold 23 houses.
That's so awesome. So do you attribute that to your mentor really showing you how to do real estate, or was it the energy of the office? Like, what was it that really made you flick that switch that said, real estate, you got to work at it, and if you're enjoying it and having fun, this is what you can do?
Good question. It was a combination of things. I had a really, really strong mentor, which there weren't, 29 years ago, this is like in 89, I think it is. 29 years ago, there weren't really mentors. They were people that you could latch on to or would latch on to you, but it wasn't the same. We didn't have cell phones, for those of you that aren't old enough to remember. Computers. We had pagers if we were drug dealers, yeah. But we didn't have any of these things. So it was really old school. I had a mentor who taught me, and he said the key to everything to me was that this man, by the way, now is probably the third highest person over at Coldwell Banker.
Wow.
He runs the Western United States. He was one of the owners that got bought out, and I'm only saying that because it kind of shows the evolution of this man, and I got to sit at his desk every day at 7 in the morning and have him as a mentor.
Yeah.
By the way, everybody else had the same opportunity I did, but I was the only one that showed up. That doesn't make me great, doesn't make me anything. Remember, I almost failed the first year. So don't think that this is I came out of the chute and I was this high achiever, and it wasn't like that.
But I think that's really important, and you hear a lot of successful leaders say the first important step is showing up.
And I figured I could at least do that. I could afford to do that. But I was desperate to get out of my mom and dad's house. And you have to have that driving factor. And I just wanted to get out of the house as soon as possible. So I went and saw the mentor every 2 or 3 times a week, and I would go in and he'd say, "What'd you do this weekend?" And I'd tell him, real estate wise, and I'd tell him, "Here's what I did at my open house, here's who I spoke to." He said, what did you say? What did you do next? And then we'd just tweak it ever so slightly. And then the next week I'd come back and we'd tweak it a little more and a little more. And we did that for a couple of years until it was just automatic.
That's great.
And what he also told me, maybe I'll jump the gun, but what he also told me was just be good at a couple things, and I could handle that. Because if there's 10 things in real estate, there were 6 of them I didn't want to do, 2 of them that I probably didn't know how to do or never would, but there was a couple things that I could automatically do.
Right.
And they were things that were free and just required me to show up. And that was open houses and floor calls.
Awesome.
Floor calls are those calls that used to come into the office, so just a random call on a sign.
Right, and we don't do that here at Keller Williams.
And we don't do it
You do your own marketing.
Yeah, it doesn't work. They don't have it anywhere, literally.
Oh, really? Okay.
No, I don't see it in any offices. But I was good at 2 things, and that was it. And I literally, on the other 7 or 8 things, I was terrible. I just wasn't good at it. But I overcame it because I had such a deep pipeline because I was so good at the open houses.
Right, and so you built your database by open house leads? Is that how you did it?
Open house leads, cold calling, door knocking. And I think the important thing that I would want to hear if I was out there is to make it legit for you. Again, I was terrible at a bunch of things. So just to understand that. I'm not saying that I'm the greatest at listing presentations and marketing. You're all better than me at that. I was never good at that. But there was nobody that was better at open houses / cold calling. So when you think that's bragging, I'm telling you, look at how I was terrible in these other things. And I think that makes it a little more legitimate or a little easier. I remember hearing people stand up early in my career, and they were great at everything. And they looked great, and you're like, oh my God. They're like, I can't do that. And that's when I decided I just had to be real concise about what I'm good at.
So like really focusing on your strengths, working those, and just shining through those. And then whatever it was that you weren't that good at, just kind of like work through it. And maybe did you ever partner with anybody?
No, I had a lot of people that asked me to, but I was a control freak. Not now. But we weren't built for teams back then. We didn't have teams back then. Really, you had mom and son teams and husband and wife, and not anything else really. It just didn't really exist. And as I look back on it, how did I do that? My listing presentation was I was so good at open house. My discussion with you on your open house. So I didn't go in and compete with anybody. I didn't even go in with a listing presentation. I closed you at that open house in 15 or 20 minutes naturally, or not naturally. I had to learn how to do that. But I didn't do it from a salesy standpoint.
Right.
No one's ever said they thought I was slick or any of that stuff.
Right. You're still not, but that's okay. No,
But
I'm
you
just
know what's
kidding.
interesting?
Yeah.
But let me jump on this. But I feel like I am, and it's really hard because like in front of a group of you like this, I've spoken in front of thousands of people. I have to be loud. I've got to be fast. I got to be energetic, and that's not who I am.
Well, we want you who you are, Chris.
No, you to fall asleep. I'm a beach guy. I live in Capitola. I'm mellow. I'm quiet. I'm not very social. But again, this is what I do for a living.
But see, that's the cool thing, and it kind of jumps into where I wanted to go with what you were talking about was, when you're authentic and being transparent and just being yourself, the surfer dude, right? Like, you always had that personality, even when you were first starting out in real estate.
Very true.
And doing open houses, right?
Very true.
So just talking to people at the open house, you were being you. That's how you engage them, and that's how you close them, right?
Yeah.
And wouldn't you say that that's important for everybody here to remember to be authentic?
Yeah, and I'm probably the most extreme case of that. Because here I am selling multi-million-dollar homes in the most expensive markets in the country, and yet at heart, I'd rather be somewhere else.
Right.
And I'm very honest about this. Not right now, but most of the time. But I'd rather be on the beach, or I run a lot. I've got dogs, I've got kids, I've got an ex-wife, I got all those things. So there's so many other things I'd rather be doing, which I think is also an interesting perspective, because to me it was always hard to listen to the guy or the girl who was like hardcore real estate, because I just wasn't. And I'm not telling you how to be, but I'm saying on the authentic side, if I did it how the other people that were successful did it, I would have washed out, because I couldn't be that person.
Right.
And that's the upside of me is I knew what I couldn't or wouldn't do. The downside is me is I wouldn't do those things.
Right. So what you did was you really focused on what you were really good at, and you really knew real estate, right? You knew how to transact real estate.
Yeah, one thing was being brought up in a family where my parents were teachers and coaches, and we were around all these people that were experts in what they did was, since I didn't have a business background, since nobody ever talked to my family about business, because why would you? There was no money. I always had to be over-prepared. So I overtrained for running, or I overtrained for sports, or I overtrained for all these things. Part of it was a personality trait of not wanting to look stupid. So if you asked me in the beginning what made me really good, I didn't want to look like an idiot.
Okay.
And I felt like everybody knew more than me. I had no background. I was young. I was younger than everybody. I was 52. I was about 23. And guys like Chuck Nunley, that was sort of the crew that was in our offices, literally.
Oh,
the
wow.
Guys that the men and women that went out and started Sereno, Intero, on and on and on. They were the people that were there in front of me.
Wow.
And literally, like as agents or managers, and everybody was about 8 or 10 years older than me. And I thought, man, I can't do what they do.
Right.
I mean, I'm not them. They were they said go to my sphere of influence. I was like, my sphere, if you combine them, didn't have enough money to buy a property.
Right.
And it's like...
That 23.
Yeah, 23 is like, my friends were, I had to buy it when we went out with my friends. Nobody had money. So because of that, and the market was terrible as well. And I was very lucky to start in a horrible market. Didn't feel like it at the time.
Right.
Didn't feel lucky at the time. I started out, and as I tell people now, the typical time to sell a property was about 6 months. That's how long it took. So you'd get the call not after 3 days, like today, what's wrong, why is my home not sold? You'd get it after 3 or 4 months. But that was my perspective. And so everything was a battle. We had, I think my first interest rate on my house was 12% or something. And I remember like when it was under 10, it was like a single digit. It was like celebrate type of thing. So it depends on your perspective there. But when I look at how long, now when I look at this type of market that we're in now, I would have struggled in this type of market. I'm really, really good in a market where people have difficulties that can be overcome. If you're a buyer of mine, it is hard to overcome the other 21 other offers.
Right.
I can do it, and I know a lot of things that will make that work.
Right.
But in a tough market, that's when my skills come out.
Right.
Because I'm old school to the core, but I have a real tech side too.
Right.
Which is
Right.
strange.
I wanted to talk about that
I think
too.
it's strange, yeah.
So, there's this great quote, smooth seas do not make skilled sailors, right? So the more difficulty that you've got, the more, the market's hard, it really forces you to bring out your skills, right? And it sounds like that's what, that's what you did.
Yeah, I thrived in markets where other agents struggled.
Yeah, that's
to this
really
day,
good.
and I've probably been through 4 of those cycles in my career, and I just felt like in markets like this, and for those of you that are new to this market, or new and this is the only market you know, or those of you who've been through 1 or 2 sets of these, when the market gets rough, and rough would mean everything's from a seller's perspective. When they say it's a good market, or when they say it's a bad market, it depends who you are, buyer or seller. So when I see this market here, there's not as much skill in getting an offer accepted now. There is skill, but not as much. When the market starts to turn and buyers get uneasy and sellers get uneasy, that's when I dominate. Because I know how to navigate that. It's a tough road, and it eliminates a lot of my competition.
So when we get to the buyer's market, we're going to expect you to hold at least 1 class, if not a weekly thing, to help us learn those skills.
It's interesting because if you ask me to come in and do it now in the markets that we're in, yes, I can add some skills. I didn't want to look like I didn't know what I was doing. I went out and saw the entire inventory that was available for whatever areas I was working. And I built a coaching program. I was at Coldwell Banker. For those of you who don't know, I was at Coldwell Banker forever. I built a coaching program. I coached 200 or 300 of their agents, top agents, middle, new agents, around these things that this mentor taught me, as a matter of fact. So when I went to Coldwell Banker and said, hey, can I come here and teach this thing? And I showed it to this man. He said, that's all the stuff I did. And I was like, I'm not a rocket scientist. And I just added a couple things.
Right.
When I brought these things into all these agents, I remember one time I coached about 50 agents at a time a lot. And I said, okay, how many of you have seen every single property in the market? And like the entire room raised their hand. I was like, that's shocking. How long did it take you to go see those properties? And we were talking about Los Gatos, let's say, and let's say there were 60 listings in Los Gatos, or 111. But there were like 60 plus listings. I said, how long did it take? And they're like, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And it finally clicked in my brain, because I'm really smart. I was like, wait.
I got the joke. Did you get
I'm really sorry. It finally clicked in. It's like, wait, you're saying that when I said how many of you have seen all these, you were looking on the internet. You were looking on the MLS. And they looked at me like I was from another planet. I was like, yeah, what else? And these are all ages of agents.
Wow.
These were experienced all the way down. So I made a quick distinction that the one thing that I always did that separated me was I saw every property in the market I was going to work on. And while I can't remember names all the time, I remember properties.
Right.
I don't remember addresses, but I can remember the properties.
That's great. So you highly recommend going on tour and checking out all the properties.
Because I didn't want to look stupid. Again, we all have our own motivations. Mine was because I didn't want to look foolish. I knew I had to see every single property. And when there was 100, I could literally see every property in Santa Clara. I know how to do that. I could literally do it in a month. Okay, but on a smaller scale, if I was doing Cambrian, I grew up in Cambrian. Cambrian, Los Gatos, if I was to do those, I mean, you're talking in 1 week. Easily in 1 week, I could go see every single property in those areas. Then next week, how many more come on? Is it 10? Is it 20? I could see those in 4 hours.
Right.
And every week after that, the maintenance of seeing every property is like 4 hours in this type of market.
Right.
So it's 40 hours, 4. But everything I did was built around that. And I knew one other agent in town, a really well-known agent, that she and I would talk. And the reason we would talk is because we both saw every property. There's lots of other people we could talk to, but it was like, you've seen every property. How do these 3 stack up?
Right.
And that's what I built my career on.
Is basically knowing the market, knowing every single property, and how would you bring that information up with your clients to show how you really were better than, or not that you were better, but that your skills.
I was better.
That your skills were better.
Yes. So everything I did was around storytelling, and again. To me, storytelling or scripts or dialogues, whatever you want to call them, they all have a little bit of negative connotation to me. Because when I heard those things, like, oh, a story, that's what my kids tell me. Right? Never the truth.
Exactly.
Even when they didn't do anything wrong, they're like, why are you telling me a story? You know, it's like, you don't have to lie when you did something good. I guess they don't do a lot of good things. Evidently, I've got a 13-year-old girl.
Oh, well, there you go. No.
And a 16-year-old boy.
Oh, yeah.
That's that.
It's done. It's over with. But I know what their scripts are in dialogues. And think about it this way. How many of you have kids? Or dogs? Or cats? You have scripts. Chickens. I didn't want to go there. But you all have scripts and dialogues. Did you brush your teeth? Mm-hmm. I would say to my kids. And they go, yeah. And I go, did you use a toothbrush? And I'm not, come on, are we joking? Right? That was the script. Did they have a script? Yeah. They would say, yes, they did. And say, did you use your toothbrush? Yeah, you did. I said, I'm going to go feel your toothbrush. I'll be right back. Right? My point is, they're on scripts, we're on scripts. Everybody's on scripts a great deal of the time. So if you know that, that's the perspective I went from. So go back. I'd go out and see every property. Let's take Los Gatos to make it easy.
Okay.
I'd see every property in Los Gatos. I'd hold an open house in Los Gatos. Why did I not hold a property in Santa Clara open? Because I saw everything in Los Gatos, so I needed that knowledge. I literally would not go see Santa Clara unless I was doing an open house there, and what would I do? I'd see every property there then. I couldn't not, it's a double negative, I was a teacher.
That's okay, don't worry.
I couldn't not know everything because I didn't want this to look stupid. So what I would do was I built scripts and dialogues around everything. So I'd go out and see all these properties. And so a good example is, I remember holding properties over on Loma Alta, on Johnson, on all these different streets, and I would hold an open house. I've seen everything out there. Buyer walks in the property, and part of what I would say in my script was, what's the best property you've seen? And if you notice something about my scripts, all of them are very short, and I shut up at the end. And that's the biggest lesson I taught hundreds of agents is shut up.
Yeah.
And it's funny because they always said later on that they could hear my voice. And I was like, that's kind of sketchy.
Yeah.
We had dreams and we heard your voice. They're like, wait a minute, that's a whole other thing. But what I would say is you'd walk in, and I can give you the whole dialogue. It's very simple.
I would love it.
But
How many of you guys would like to hear his whole open house dialogue?
Do you
Yeah.
have them written down somewhere? The scripts?
I have scripts,
You're
yeah.
gonna send them?
And here, let me give a warning in the beginning. Everything I did was to be different than everybody else. So, to me, whatever you all did, I was going to do something different. Not just the opposite, but I was going to do something different. Whatever I considered better, but different.
Mm-hmm. And unique for you, right?
Unique for me, that fit me.
Right.
Like going back to being to yourself. But the things that I did, and again, literally, I taught hundreds of agents this, and why I say this is, they said, well, what if we all start doing that? I go, then I'll do something different. Mm-hmm. Literally, I will switch and beat you because I will do something differently. So take what everybody's saying. I always have to give warnings. Take what everybody's saying about how they did something for what it's worth, and do they match your style? Are they like you? Then listen to what I have to say. Don't be me. You don't want to, and you can't. And I wouldn't want you to be for lots of reasons. But be yourself within what I do. So again, here's what I do in open houses. I was very specific about my open houses. I didn't let other agents tell me where the open houses were going to be that I would hold. Most of the time, I did not hold my own listing open. Most of the time, 99% of the time, I held somebody else's listing open. I was different holding an open house that was not my own listing. And I'm a pattern guy. I understand patterns, and I see them very clearly. I'm very visual. I can actually see it. I sucked on my own houses, on my own listings.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's
because
interesting.
I knew where I was going to go every single time. And so I got thrown off when I had too much knowledge.
Got it.
So I would go up to agents in the office, top agents, say, hey, I'm Chris, here's what I do. I'd go to people I didn't know. I said, here's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this, 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 and this. And I would either impress them or surprise them that somebody had this much detail.
Right.
Here's what I'm going to do afterwards. Here's what I'm going to tell you about. Here's the update I'm going to give you. A lot of things that KW says, and I just always did it.
Right.
I'm going to tell the listing agent how many people came through, who I think they should contact. Hey, so-and-so from APR came through with a client. I would get on them right away. I heard them say something about square footage. You might want to attack that. Okay? So I literally would hit the button and send out these emails. I'd have them all done.
That's awesome.
Because when I was done with my open house, I was done, by the way. I was gone. But what I would do in the open house that was in Los Gatos that I'd previewed and seen every property. And by the way, I also knew every single property that was off MLS, which I don't think we take advantage of enough in here.
Right.
Where I was most recently manager, Colbanker, Menlo Park, Woodside, Portola Valley, about 30 to 35% of our properties were off MLS and were sold off MLS. I call it the gold mine. And here I don't see us take advantage of it. If I heard these people in here today talking, and I was even writing notes, I don't even sell anymore. If I heard somebody in here tell me an off MLS, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And in this market, that would be a huge thing. So we can go back to that. But I knew the off MLS inventory. So I'd hold an open house. I always held it at a different time than everybody else. What's the standard time in Los Gatos?
1 to 4.
1 to 4. So I held it 1:30, 4:30. Okay. I had people say you can't do that. They're from 1 to 4. I held them from 1:30 to 4:30. I'd hold them sometimes from 11 to 2:30, so I could get back home early. By the way, again, it's built around a lifestyle. But I would do 11 to 2:30. How much competition did I have from other open houses from 11 until 1 o'clock? None. I was the only guy in town. So already I'm different. Does that make sense? Again, I'm going to differentiate myself in my open house, and you're either going to love me or you're not even consider me. It's black and white with me. And I did that intentionally because I didn't want to compete. If there were 18 open houses, you were going to remember me and say, that guy's great or that guy sucks.
Right.
I don't care. But either way, you're going to remember me. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
So the simple scripts, you'd walk at my open house, I'd be sitting down. And I taught this. And so we did this. We'd do it in role playing where I'd break you up into groups and have you do it. And like people were like, do we really have to sit? And it was like, put a seatbelt on. Don't worry, you're okay. Gonna crash. And I would sit down, and you'd walk strategically. Usually at the kitchen table, I could see the door, but strategically. And I had no flyers outside, ever.
Correct.
I had no flyers inside either, by the way. You can feel the uneasiness. And so they'd walk in the door, and I'd be sitting there, and I'd say, hi, come on in, take a look around, let me know if you have any questions.
So then they'd feel like they'd have to ask you a question.
Oh, they did every time. They were stunned because I always said they went to buyer, they went to buyer class, right? Buyer open house class, and they had all the questions ready to ask.
Right.
And so I'd say, come on in, take a look around, let me know if you have any questions. And they look at you, and what's the first thing they say? Do you have a flyer? I'd say, no, I don't, but let me know if you have any questions. Did you feel how uncomfortable that is? And they would do that, and they were like, either this guy's the biggest loser, but they couldn't figure me out. They were stunned, I call it. It was like I hit them between the eyes. And so I was like, but go ahead and take a look around. Let me know if you have any questions. Then they almost always will say, well, what's the price? $2 million. Notice I didn't say $2 million, 4,300 square feet. We have inspections, blah, 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 blah. Didn't say any of that. I answered their question. $2 million. And they scoot
LA law.
Yeah, they'd scoot away.
I think I would be one of the ones that wouldn't be able to stand
Yeah,
here.
but what? But exactly.
Right? It's like, let's, please, just tell me.
But watch where we go.
Okay, good.
And that's the thing is my first job is to get you out of whatever the pattern you're in.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And so I learned that years. Yeah, I learned that years ago. Get you out of your pattern. And
So-
remember, if somebody's going to 22 open houses, what are 21 of you doing?
Same thing.
Attacking them at the door, giving them a flyer, blah, 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 blah. You guys all blend in together no matter how good you are.
Right.
I need to distinguish myself.
I'm teasing you.
Oh, no. I mean, I can see the look on people's faces like, what a loser.
Yeah.
And so what I would do is I'd say, take a look around, let me know if you have any questions. And they'd say, okay, and they'd start going around. And it's amazing how much they'd hang around me. Because I didn't give them something, they would hover, I call it. So they'd hover in there because there's something missing. Even though they have the MLS, even though they have their cell phones, nothing has changed in 29 years on these, in that sense. They're just they just don't know what to do.
Right.
So now's when I'm going to step it up and I'm going to change gears. And they'd go, well, what's the price? It's $2 million. And they go, oh, okay. And I'd say, how's that compared to the price range you're looking in? Which is an open-ended question. It's not a yes. It's not a closed question, which would be,
Right.
Are you looking for a property? Yeah. No. Right? I asked almost no closed-end questions. So it'd be, is this in the price range? It's $2 million. How does that compare to the price range you're looking?
It's right in there.
Great. Go ahead and take a look around. There are 3 bedrooms and 2 baths, and you can go take a look at the backyard. Just watch out because that back step is bad.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay? So now I've stepped it up. And again, this goes very quickly, by the
Right.
way. Oh, it only goes slower when I interject with you guys.
Right.
So you'd get up, I'm still sitting there. And like they're literally like looking behind, like, is this guy going to follow me? Right?
Right.
Because everybody else does. Or they feel like you are. Doesn't matter. They feel like you are. So then you go out, you wander around, almost all the amount of questions I get asked because of the way I do it is off the chart. So if you think, well, they're just going to come back and leave, almost never does that happen. Just because of the way I go about it. You go out there and take a look at it, and you come back in from the backyard, and I'd say, what'd you think of the size of the backyard? I didn't say, do you like the backyard? Because what could you say?
Yes or
Yep.
no?
Either way, you're screwed.
Right.
Yes.
It's the end of the conversation.
Now where do I go? What'd you think of the backyard?
Right. So would you find then that people would kind of like start to hover so they could hear your answer to the questions that the other people attending
Yeah.
the open house?
I taught classes on what happens when people hover. Mm-hmm. Literally. Like, how do you distinguish?
Are people still hovering out there? Or are they just coming in and going out?
Oh, hover.
They're hovering?
They're hungry for information. And if I'm the key to the information, they think they have it on the internet, but they're smart enough now, and this has changed in the last 7, maybe 8 years, where they realize, okay, that's good information on the internet, but it's not enough.
Right.
Which before it was a disadvantage when we went from holding all the information, you didn't have the internet as a person, a regular person I call you, you didn't have the information and you needed me. As soon as you got it, agents were flipping out. And I was like, no, now you can play off their confusion.
Right.
Because they'd come in and they'd have all this Zillow information and all this other stuff, and their head was spinning, and my job was to stop their head from spinning.
Yeah.
So, but let's stop there. Can you see how exact I am about all this? I mean, I knew what I was trying to do, and I never varied. Yeah.
I think the real difference for me is in watching you deliver this information again. Like, you gave a little bit of this when we introduced you, when you were introduced. I wasn't a week. And it was like, wow, how can that work without being abrasive, literally abrasive? But what I just saw is the eye contact. You're not like, yeah, look around and let me know if I can help. That's not it. You're not too busy. It's just different.
I think that's a good point.
If I say what's the price and you say $2 million, okay, somebody's got to talk, because I'm not looking down and you're not looking at your phone. You're not sitting down because you don't care or because you're too busy to get up. You're sitting down intentionally to draw someone to you.
And that's exact. I mean, that's well put.
That's an amazing thing to watch. It's not just the script. It's like I'm watching you. Like
Yep.
you're not. Wait. What? Wait. Somebody's got to talk here.
And when I've broken down these classes into like 10 sessions that I taught, we had a session on that. Is do you understand what you were just saying? That part there. To me, again, I studied sociology in college. I was around coaches, my teachers. So it was always about reading the group. And the group's going 7 different ways. And talk about herding kittens, I had 150 high school students. You can imagine that. And they're going all different directions. But I could always pull them in because I knew how to break their patterns. And people coming through an open house are going through at a certain pace. Maybe not now, there's not as many open houses, but yes, they are. It never changes. They're going 80 miles an hour, not 100, or whatever it is. Nothing changes dramatically. But when I held open house, I'd say, come on in, take a look around. What'd you think of the backyard? And so, oh, it's nice. And I'd say, go ahead and take a look at the rest of the house and let me know if you have any questions. Where most of you at that point would have bit on it as an agent and tried to get that. I'm not afraid of you walking away. I'm not afraid of you walking away, or walking through the rest of the house, I should say. But they're starting to get how our interaction works. You ask a question, I answer a question.
Right.
You ask a question, I answer a question.
So what you're doing then is you're taking your experience of being around people, which we all have, we've all been around people, and you're reading the energy of what these people are doing, right? Like you could tell when somebody walks into an open house if they like the house, right? Just like, oh, this looks nice, right? Or oh God, this doesn't even have what we want, right?
And let me stop you there. And that's completely irrelevant to me how they react, by the way. I read it, but I don't care.
Right. Well, So you're reading their energy, right? And so then you're being authentically you, and you're asking questions in a way that's non-threatening but welcoming, because you're keeping the eye contact and allowing them to then take ownership of what it is that they're doing, that they're looking to buy a house, and you're going to answer questions for them if they need it. So,
based upon their personalities and their needs.
Right.
There's 3 different types of personalities. I'm not talking like KW, how KW lays it out. There's always 3 types of people. You know, they're highly analytical. There's only 2 or 3 things of anything I ever see.
Right.
So what I was doing is I was reading you. So now you come in, I'm still sitting down. And again, I'm not on my computer. I'm not on my phone. So already I'm beating the rest of you. And I knew that as soon as the phones came out. And again, I was the early adopter of everything. And I'm more tech than all of you guys. I'm just saying from most perspectives I am. So it's not that I don't get it or I don't enjoy it. It's just I know what I'm doing.
right.
If I'm going to sacrifice my 3 or 4 hours on an open house, and I usually held them only for 3 because I only had 3 hours of patience. If I was going to do that, I was going to do it right. That was my moneymaker. I knew how much I made per open house.
That's really good.
I knew how many people I need to pick up. Clients. I would pick up clients. Many times I pick up clients, and when I picked up 2 in an open house, I was done. And I might even leave if it was a vacant house. I mean, that's a whole other story. I did flexible open houses. I did all sorts of variations. My point was when I was done, I was done.
Right.
So again, this is very different than what you're used to hearing. But I say, okay, go ahead, take a look around. Go ahead and take a look at the upstairs. And they'd go up there, and you could hear them like, he's not attacking us. He's not following.
Yeah.
You knew there was something different. When they came down, I was standing up.
Right.
Not at the bottom of the stairs, but I'd be standing up. I'm now changing the scene. It's going to get more engaged. And I come down and say, so what'd you think about that 3rd bedroom up there? Oh, it was so cute, so blah, blah, whatever it was, is what they say. And I go, how many bedrooms are you looking for?
Right.
Well, 3, but we really would like 4.
Right. So
Right?
you would
Now
start
I
to get
engage.
the engagement going
Now do you feel the
on,
flow
right?
change? And it
Right.
would change. And it'd be like, oh, I saw you had the 2 kids in car. Oh, how old are they? Right? Now I've become very personable. But I'm still not asking him to work with me or anything like that. I literally never asked anybody to work with me.
So how did you close them?
The normal way it went was, it sounds like the backyard on this house works for you. It sounds like the bedroom situation and those don't. What's the best house that you've seen?
Right.
People, you'll stop them in their tracks when you say that. What's the best house you've seen? And they'll go, and they'll usually, especially with a husband and wife, and there's 2, you'll say, well, what that one? No, that one, I didn't like that one, remember?
Yeah.
And I got them now. I've got them interacting. I know where I'm going. And it's like, I heard you talking about one on Johnson. Was it the blue one with the white picket fence, or was it the yellow one that was more modern?
Right.
Remember, I saw every single property, and I knew those 2 properties, and they'd say, more the yellow one. Well, no, more the blue one. And I'd go, well, okay. I heard what you said about the backyard. So the blue one had a great big backyard. Is that the type of yard you're looking for? So here comes my close.
Yeah.
Is that the type of yard you're looking for? Yeah. The yellow one, remember the bedrooms upstairs? That sounded like much more of what you were talking about here. Does that make how's that sound? Like, oh yeah, no, that would be perfect. And I'd say, and obviously, you were on that street. How'd you feel about the street?
Right. So you would ask them questions about the house and how they felt. They were all open-ended. So what did you do to wrap up, right, and get the appointment?
So now we go through those questions. We go through a couple of those, and I'd say, literally, I'd say, I'm trying to shift it for this market because of the amount of properties in there, and so then I'd say something like, so overall, how's your experience looking for a house? So I'm going to bring them back down that roller coaster real quick because you know what their experience is. Why? Because they're still looking at open houses.
Right.
They're reading the paper. It'd be simple in this market. So how's your experience looking for a home?
Right.
And what are you going to say? Oh, it's fantastic. No way. They don't say that in the best of markets for them. They say, oh, it's terrible. What do you feel like the problem is? Do I know what the problem is? There's a lack of inventory. What do you feel the problem is? Well, there just aren't that many properties. And go, well, again, you sound like you have a realistic price range. And it sounds like you know what you're looking for. How much are you willing to sacrifice on that house in terms of the big bedroom, the yard, and so on? You said $2 million.
So then you're starting to get details on
Now
what
I'm
it
starting
is
to go
that they
deeper.
want.
But listen to all the things I'm tapping into. Everything they already told me.
Right.
Because I asked. So now they go, well, we really could go to 2.3. Happens every time. Most times. 2.3. And I go, oh, well, that really changes the game. You know, in our office meeting this week, we were just talking about a couple properties we had off MLS. How many properties have you seen that are not on the MLS? And here's where we're done.
Yes.
Right.
If you can feel it.
Okay, great.
How many properties did you see? What do you mean?
So you've just brought in your unique value proposition. How many of you guys are using that in your closings for open houses? Right? That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for doing that.
That took, what we did here took longer than it takes in the open house. I was
Right.
watching the clock.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And
right.
so I can get through 20 of you without you feeling like you're on a conveyor belt. But I'm really fast and really good at it. And again, I was 5 times louder up here than I am. I was way more animated up here than I am, all because you're sitting out there. If you saw me in action, with your personality, I would match your personality. I'd be bubbly, I'd be happy, I'd be smiling, I'd be doing all those. The next person walks in, they're analytical and they're closed, and I'll go quiet on them. The wife is bubbly and loud. I'm just, not always, but I'm just saying. The wife is bubbly and loud, so I'll go bubbly and loud with you, and then I'll go quiet and analytical with him. That's all I ever did. It was go back to what it is. I was in a family of coaches and teachers. I read my audience. I know my stuff, so I don't look foolish. And I do the same thing every time. And I've done that for 29 years that way.
That's so awesome. So I know that, and thank you for sharing
Sure.
all of that. So I know that in your career, you've created a tech company, and so what was it about that? What did you create, and what was it that you were wanting to help realtors with? And does it still exist?
Yes, yes, and yes.
Okay.
All three. Yes, it still exists. The purpose of it, it's a company, and I don't talk about it. I don't talk about it, but it's a company called Circle Suite. And the reason it came about was because I was coaching hundreds of agents. And this is during the last downturn when the sky was falling. And I was like, this is the perfect opportunity. But one thing I wanted them to do was start to use all the different tools that were out there.
Right.
One of the tools was social media. And here's my disclaimer. I hate social media. I don't know my password to Facebook. I'm sure I could find it. But I just don't care. I literally don't care. But I started a company, Circle Suite, and what we did was, it came about because I was coaching these hundreds of agents, and I said, you need to be on social media. And they said, well, we don't know anything about it. Will you set it up for us? I was like, no, I'm not going to set it up for you. And then I saw an opportunity to make money on it. I didn't like it, but I saw money. I saw a revenue stream, much like KW has, revenue streams. So I went out and built this company, and we ended up having over 1,000 paid customers, almost all at Coldwell Banker, simply because I didn't even try to go anywhere else. I was still selling real estate and coaching 2 sports with 2 kids as well.
Wow.
But what it did was, it was as simple as this. We help people build their Facebook business page, their Twitter account, and a LinkedIn account, post compelling content 2 times a week, every Tuesday and Thursday, so over 100 times a year, and we charged about $200 a year to do that. And agents lined up and gave me their credit cards.
That's awesome.
Do I think that social media is important? Yeah. Do I engage in it? No. Do you need to have a box checked that you're on social media in case somebody looks at you? Absolutely. There was a time when you didn't need a website and you could get away without it. Then there was a time you couldn't. There was a time you could get away. I was an early adopter on cell phones when they were giant. There was a time you didn't have to have one. There was a time when if you didn't have one, you were out of business.
Right.
And I felt that way about social media. Not because I care, but because I knew people were looking.
Right.
So I set that up and built that for 1,000 plus agents.
That's
awesome. I still own it. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great.
Thank you.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
doing that. So I want to shift a little bit, and just from all of the conversation that you've shared with us, we can tell, what some of your strengths are, and what it is that you have coached agents with. So thank you for sharing that. You are now the general manager of the fastest growing Keller Williams offices. And so what vision do you hold for us? And how do you plan to take us there?
Well, and again, I came over I had different offers, but Mark had spoken to me years ago. Let me tell a little bit of that backstory because I think that's important. Mark approached me 2 or 3 years ago. He approached me about this position. And I said, I don't think you're there. I didn't feel it was a good move. I didn't think the brand was there. I had been a team leader in Boulder, Colorado back in my younger days. And I loved Keller Williams.
Keller Williams Boulder.
And this was, it was a strange time. This is like 99, I think. So there's not a lot of technology.
Still
Not a lot,
turning.
but I thought, that's phenomenal. Our ownership group ended up failing, and the ownership group ended up failing, so it wasn't a good experience that way. But I said, this is the way to do it. In fact, most of the coaching program that I built, besides being built around my mentor, were built around, now that I look at KW again, it's like, wow, they followed the same path. Mm-hmm. What I'm seeing for KW and why I came over, coming from Coldwell Banker's 3 offices, was there are advantages that we had here that I think are underutilized. Mm-hmm. You don't have to, I'm not saying you need to use everything. In fact, I'm saying don't use everything. Go back to what I said in the beginning. Find the 2 or 3 things that you can really use and dominate those things. Mm-hmm. Not going to tell you what those things are, but it could be the technologies we have. There is something, don't forget, we are in Silicon Valley, and it amazes me that here we are, and we still are not tech. I'm not going to say savvy. We still have not adopted technology the way we should or could as real estate agents, considering we're in the epicenter of the world here.
Right.
And I used to say this up at Menlo Park, too, where I was, between there and here is the heart of the entire world in terms of technology, easily. So why are we not using these tools when our clients expect us to? Mm-hmm. So I would start to look at KW, and where I want to take things from a general manager standpoint is I want to help agents sort of get into the channels that they need to be, not grabbing all 10 tools if there's 10, and the 10 of variations equaling 100, but the 2 or 3 tools, whatever those things are. Does that mean you go get a mentor, like I had? Does that mean that you then use some of the technology that KW has? Yep. Does it mean you use some old school things like door knocking and then know how to put them into a funnel? Yeah. So it was a great match for me to intertwine with what KW preaches.
Right, right.
Where the other companies, I had to set, at Coldwell Banker, for instance, I had to set the channels like, oh, you should be doing things on a pattern. Oh, you should be doing this. Mm-hmm. I had to build all the patterns and then build the stuff.
Oh, got
It's all here. It's all here.
Right. So now Keller Williams is a technology company, right, that focuses on real estate and training and coaching. So it's a perfect fit for you that you're here now that we've announced we're a technology company, and with Kelly coming out, right?
Yeah.
That's the name of the of the Siri or
the Siri version. And I've been back to Austin, and during some of the breakout sessions, I'd sneak off and go see the tech guys. I was like, what are you doing? Show me how to do this. And they would start out like, okay, this is, we're going to put these things on the internet. And I was like, we can go up a little higher on our level here. It's like, is it plugged in? Yes, it is. But right. And I went and saw everything they did. And not just from a tech standpoint. It was fascinating from a tech standpoint because everything I've ever been promised by, and I hate to say Coldwell Banker, but that was the biggest company, the biggest and longest lasting company with a name and blah, 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 which we've now surpassed here.
Absolutely.
But they talked about the technology, and I was disappointed every single time.
Right.
And I learned that when they said something like this, it was going to look like this.
Right.
On this one, I went in with the same mindset. It's like, okay, here we go. We're going down this path again. You're going to tell me all these great technology and tools, and I'm just going to be disappointed. And I told the guys at the end, I said, this is the first time my expectations matched what you're doing.
Awesome.
And literally, I haven't said that in 15 years of looking at technology.
Wonderful.
And I said, it's in one platform, it's one thing, one place, a couple of buttons. And that was the key to me. And when I see these technologies, and I don't want to say something about one section of it that I think, there's one piece of the technology that if it does what I've been told and shown that it does, there's nowhere else to be. And you're all at KW, I assume everybody in the room's at KW, I'm not selling anybody anything, but there's one piece of it I go, that I gotta have. The rest of them are just dynamite, they're fantastic. So for a tech guy who still door knocks, because I'm extremely old school, this is the place to be because it's all of those subsets.
Right.
You can door knock, take it and put it in the highest of high technology tools, go back into calling the client there, which is old school, not texting them. Then you can do this, that, and the other, and it all fits.
Right.
It was a perfect fit.
Right, right. So you've got the Gary Keller wants Keller Williams to be the number one company, which, by the way, did you guys hear we're the number one? We've got the Triple Crown.
Yep.
Isn't that awesome? Woohoo!
That's a big deal.
Yeah, woohoo! So, you've got that, right, of that desire to just be number one. So, of course, technology, which is a perfect fit for you. That's so awesome. And then, Gary is all about, real estate is about relationships until it's about real estate, right? So you build those relationships on personal touches, which is why, you're saying do the phone calls instead of the touching. I mean, the text. Do not touch.
Yeah.
Do the phone calls.
I was gonna say I don't remember that stuff.
Phone calls instead of texting, right? I mean, it's like you want to try to create
Yeah.
those avenues and opportunities for communication.
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
I counted
right.
30, but I didn't.
So I love that, right? So you're bringing in, and then the old school, where you're saying, your door knock. Well, it's like know what you're good at,
Yep.
right? Like I teach a class called 6 Personal Perspectives. Self-mastery is the number one that all top producers have. That's their perspective, is self-mastery. So you have self-mastery in knowing what you're good at and how you do it.
And what I'm weak
and
at.
What you're weak at and what you like, and you just keep doing it.
Yeah,
That's
I
great.
come from a big sports background. I played every sport, literally, and I knew what I was good at in each sport. So I would do the thing from the position I played. I would do the thing I was good at, and everybody thought I was great. And I would not do the things I was not good at. So in most sports, I'd play offense, but then they'd ask me to play defense, and I'd suck on purpose.
Yeah.
So they go, just go play offense.
Right.
Nothing's changed.
Right, exactly.
And
So
that's
we're
the
kind
pattern of
of.
it.
I want to like,
Yep.
I want to give just a few minutes at the end for questions. So where do you want to take us?
Where I want to take you is to simplify this business. Put them into a couple of categories. We have so many things here, there's overwhelmed, and that's something I've said, is consider me new to this company again. It was 20 plus years ago that I was here. But when you come in, there's not a shortage of tools. What there is there's confusion on some of the tools because they all look great. Find a couple of tools that fit what you need. But on every tool that you find that you need, in my opinion, what I want to help take everybody is, I'd love to see everything you do incorporate whatever that thing is. Let's say it's 30 touches or 30 or 8x8 or whatever it is. Whatever that is, I would love to see you incorporate old school with the highest technology in that system. In other words, let's just make it easy. If there's 30 touches, 10 of them are going to be old school. Person to person, a phone call even, something like that. 10 of them are going to be a text or an email, which is slightly technology, very slightly. The other 10 is going to be high tech through social media or LinkedIn or something like that. So I got all 3 of those things spinning, but I'm doing all of those things.
Right.
That's where I want to help take you, is to look at a tool and go, okay, don't just go door knock and then send them a letter like I used to do. Go door knock, send them a letter, send them a text, send them an email, connect with them on LinkedIn, blah, 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 blah. Hold the open house in the same area, and who comes back through? The same person. They always do. They recycle. So what I'm saying is, it's not about technology, and it's not about old school. I call it the modern agent.
Right.
And to me, the modern agent is somebody who can encompass both ends of that spectrum, and then apply that to whatever tool it is. And if you're always thinking of that, which I do the personal stuff at the open house, but then I send them a text instantly when they leave.
Right.
Okay? But then I never put anybody on a drip campaign, by the way.
Oh, you don't?
Never, ever. Never, ever, ever. Because all of you do. And I don't mean to be negative, but I'm saying most of you do, so I'm not going to. Okay? I'm going to add value with a phone call. Hey, just saw a property. We just saw it pop up on the MLS. Just saw a property. I'm actually going over there this afternoon. It's tough to get into. Can you meet me at 1:45? That's old school. Right? I mean, it literally is. So I want to be able to help you guys see all 3 sides of it, from old school to the highest level of technology and everything in between, based around a couple tools, not every tool.
That's awesome.
Questions? Has to be questions. Yes.
Sorry, Susie. You might have.
Oh,
So what is your door knock script? If
Uh,
you're old school, I'd love to hear what that is. Yeah.
door knock
Do
script.
the same thing.
Door knock.
Very different.
There's not much of a difference. Good question though. So I'd knock on the door. I'd start on the end of one street. My rule was I start at the end of the street at 9 a.m. in the morning, get out of my car and start walking. No doors are allowed to be skipped because every house looked crappy and I wanted to skip every door. It was a chain brand a long time ago. But I'd knock on the door and say hi, and I'll go old school because I remember, hi, I'm Chris Rasmussen. I'm with Contempo Realty. How are you? Oh, good. I'm fine. And I'd say, hey, I was just knocking to see, who do you think is going to be selling their house in your neighborhood? And I'd shut up. Every time they'd say, almost every time they'd say, I don't know anybody. Go, oh, okay. Well, how long have you been here? So here I go, right? You can feel it. Here I go. How long have you been here? Oh, about 20 years. How do you like it? Everything's an open-ended question, too. How do you like it? Blah, 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 blah. Oh, it's great. We got this and that and this. And I go, well, who would you guess would be the next person to sell their home in the neighborhood? Same question, second time. You know what? I was having lunch with Mary next door yesterday. She's selling next week. The first time I asked them, they said no because I'm a stranger knocking on their door. The second time, I've interacted for 20 seconds, and they go, Mary did. I go, oh, great. How long have you known her? Okay? I don't chase that one. So we keep going and go, well, again, when do you guys think you're leaving? Oh, you said you're never leaving. When are you leaving? In 2 years and 3 days, my husband retires and we're going then. It goes this way every time. I've done this 10,000 times and I'm not exaggerating. And they'd go, great. And go, oh, so Mary, is she over here? Yeah, she's right over there. She's usually home right now, by the way. And I go, is it okay if, I'm going to knock on her door next. Is it okay if I mention your name? Sure, because everybody wants credit for everything. I go, great. I got a hot lead from that, Mary next door, and I got what I consider a cold or / warm, depending on her 2-year time frame, which really, by the way, is 1 year. I cut everything in half. That's all I'd say.
And then what about an objection? How do you handle that?
What's the objection? You say, tell me one.
I don't like solicitors. Don't
Oh, that's okay. I won't knock on your door again. Who do you think's going to be selling? And I got so few objections. Either I smiled or who knows what. But I got so few objections. And 25% of all people were home. So the next question is, when's a good time to door knock?
Did you knock on solicitor's door? That's with a no soliciting.
Yeah, I didn't read real well. Yeah.
I thought they said no smoking.
Yeah. Can't be smoking hot. And again, I would do it for 3 hours, end up back at my car, mark off the streets I went to, come back with 2 hot, 2 warm, 2 cold leads by my definition, which depends on the timing of the market, what a hot lead is.
Right.
Could have been 6 months on a hot lead. Today it could be 2 days.
Right.
Everything shifted. And I did that over and over and over again.
So what were the hours that you found best?
What I found best was 9 to noon, and it was the best because I wouldn't do it later. I'm not that complex, right? I know I'll do it at 9 to noon, but if it's 10:30, it's kind of close to lunch.
Right.
And like 12:30 was kind of like brunch, and 1 o'clock was nap. I just took a half-hour nap.
I love it. So you really...
Seriously.
Yeah, so you really do live your life by design.
Very much so. And then what's interesting is I come here, and now in my role, and I look about living by design, and that's what I was, and again, not perfect by any means or close, but I think, wow, somebody put a label on how I've been trying to do this thing.
Right.
One other goal I had was to cut down on how many hours I worked, not increase the workload. So that was, I had all these rules.
Yeah.
There is another question. Go ahead. Did you have a question?
That was it.
That was the question.
So
I
one
just
more...
wanted to hear, what if somebody just opened their door a crack?
Everything happened like this.
Right? Like it just high.
Yeah, sometimes I do. So they'd open it a crack and
Yeah.
that's crazy. And they couldn't hear me.
Well, especially old people don't anyway.
Especially the old people. Now I'm one of them. You had to play with it, because to knock for 3 hours, 5 days a week that I did, you had to play with it in your head, or else you couldn't talk yourself into doing it. So you had to make it fun. You had to make it fun. And by the way, I hated it. I absolutely hated door knocking. The curse of me, I was really good at it, but I hated it, and it worked.
Anything of value?
Pardon me?
Do you give them anything of value?
No.
His presence.
My presents. I bestow my presents on the lessers. I bless them. No, you know what I used to do is the only thing I'd carry would be a pen and my business cards. And again, that kept me from getting off track by handing them something of value. Just like my open house. It kept me from handing them something, which would be my little shield, I handed out flyers, so I wouldn't hand them anything. Would I give them anything of value? Yes, if they were talking and we were engaged, and I'd say, blah, 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 they're talking about this. They go, oh, yeah, someone, and they go, well, yeah. What'd you hear about the house down the street that sold? I would ask them. Now, of course I know it, because I knock on the door and I know what I'm doing, so I don't look stupid. And they say, yeah, well, I heard it sold for $1 million. And I go, actually, the reality is there were 27 offers and it sold for $1.3 million. And it could have sold for more, but I know that they were probably worried about appraisal issues. Oh, I didn't know that. I just know how to engage. Yes.
How often would you go back and door knock again? Like, you wouldn't just canvass one area one time, right? You would need to go back and.
If it was my farm, I would just continually, it's like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. You just keep painting over and over and over. You never stop. My farm, I'd keep going around. But I did most of Cambrian. I knocked on most of Cambrian. Literally. I mean, I'd highlight it and just keep going. So I wouldn't go back to those neighborhoods again unless it was in a farm.
And so for your farm, would you do it once a month?
My farm, actually, what I evolved out of, or what it evolved into, was you all had geographic farms. I didn't want a geographic farm. I wanted what I call a people farm. And a people farm was all those hot, warm, and cold leads that I met every single day. So my farm was only people I had spoken with. You might call it a sphere, but it isn't. But that was my farm. So I developed. I had a 500 or 600 person farm pretty quickly, but I had spoken to you. Nobody got into my farm unless I spoke to you. So it moved from a geographic to a people farm within Cambrian, and that's just what I did. One quick note is, I knocked on doors my first year, sold a house.
How long did it take before you got your first?
I think like 11 months, working 2 hours a day. A lot of baseball games, remember. I remember the first one I finally knocked on this one guy's door. This old guy, he was out there working on the yard, and I said, hi, and I gave my normal script. Hi, I said, who do you think's going to be selling their home? And the neighbor goes, I am. And I was like, oh, crap. It's the first person to ever say yes to me. And I was like, I'll be back. I had no script further than that. I had no script.
That's great.
And that's when I thought, uh-oh, and this is old school, I better get one of those contract things.
Contract things.
Yeah.
I'll be right back.
And yeah, I'll be right back. And then I got really, really good at the contract because I wrote so many, negotiated so many in tough markets. So it wasn't like, it's not this linear thing. I knocked on doors for a year, almost quit. Then I shifted over to Contempo, got a mentor, started doing open houses, and sold 24 houses a year as an individual. I was like 25 years old. No technology. Then I went from that, and I remember when everybody was kind of shocked, I shifted, did 0 open houses, and went completely to door knocking. Then I went cold calling and door knocking. But it was the same thing as my open house as everything else in my life. And so I just kept reinventing myself. Then I moved from Cambrian, where I grew up, where I was comfortable. Then I moved over to Los Gatos, and everybody told me that wouldn't work. And it was because I did the math, and I was selling 24 houses a year at $200,000. So I had 4.8 million in volume, and it only took me like 6 years to figure out these were 600,000. I was like, that's a lot more money. Literally, that's what I did. And I came over. Everybody said it wouldn't work. I remember a lot of people that we still see. And I didn't know the market. I was out, I didn't know anybody that ever owned a house that expensive. And I thought, how much am I going to have to shift my scripts? And I didn't have to shift anything. Anything. Nothing had to change. Other than knowing the market I was in. Wow. Nothing changed. And if you dropped me in Des Moines, Iowa today, and you gave me an area, and you told me the data about the homes, if I could go preview them, I could sell there just the same. Because that's the only thing I did. I did not build a business on the social sphere, because I didn't have one. Didn't build one on relationships. Didn't build one on joining these groups. Didn't build one around Little League. Didn't build any of those. I was pure, what I call a cold lead salesperson.
Thank you so
100%.
much, Chris. It sounds like what you did was you really, even though people told you you couldn't do it, it couldn't be done, you believed in yourself. And you believed and trusted in the skills that you had because you had fine-tuned them and you knew you were good. So that belief in yourself really helped you to create this wonderful career that you've had, this wonderful life that you've had. And so we're so glad that you're here now.
Thank you.
And you're taking us into the next part of our story where, we've been going fast and furious and we're heading towards number 1. And so we're really excited for you to take us to where we need to be.
And one thing I'd add is, please take what I say that I consider very different from what most people say, and just try not to confuse it with what other people are saying. The things other people are saying work for them. Parts of what they say, or all of it, that other people say, could work for you. Some of what I say could work for you. It's not an all or nothing. I got mine from probably 4 or 5 different coaches that were completely different people. So try not to say, oh, that's the right person or that's the right person.
Right.
If you have questions, come up to me. because I do have a different perspective. Different doesn't mean good, it just means different. So just be careful that it's not an either or, that you got to follow this camp or that camp.
Right.
There's a combination of things is how I would look at it.
Great. Thank you so much.
You're
Chris.
welcome.
So I want to just I want to thank all of you guys for being here, because the purpose of these interviews is for, number one, for you to get to know the person. And it's nice that you were able to come today and hear about Chris, because he's been so busy and he's being Kellerized right now. Lots of Keller Williams classes, lots of learning what it really means to be Keller Williams, right? So, I'm really glad that you're here. And I wanted to reinforce what he was saying about, being who you are, knowing what your skills are, knowing what your weaknesses are, be authentic, and then trust in your ability to go out there and get it, right? And then finally, Keller Williams is the #1 company in agent count, in sales, and in units. People are going to start looking at us. So if you want to build your downline and build your retirement fund from purely enjoying working at this company, you might want to come to the class that's being held on Thursday with Aaron Kaufman. I've been to his class. I'm part of his Facebook page. He's amazing. And I plan to use the skills and information that he has taught and it continues to teach around the country to help build my wealth, so that I can go ahead and have a retirement plan and not have to worry when I'm, 80 years old. I'm still going to have people who are loving real estate, who bring people who love real estate, who are selling real estate, because, we're millionaire real estate agents, right? So thank you very much for coming. Please help me thank Chris Rasmussen one more time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks so much, Chris.
I knew you didn't know where it was going to go. But
I know, right? But it's good. Here, I want to take a picture with you real quick.